Hi, I am Sabrina, the president of the Five Spheres of Fit, and I'm here with Noel, the founder. The Five Spheres is a lifestyle strategy that constantly evolves with you. Your five spheres are your physical, your mental, your social, your financial, and your educational spheres. So, Noel, we have a topic that we came up today because we've been dealing with it, and it's protecting our space, protecting our five spheres from negativity. So, I think one of the first questions I wanted to ask you was how, our children are, dealing with negativity as they're getting older, just like it's all around us, right? How do we, as parents, protect our children from negative comments and negative people and scenarios?
Right. So first, let me say, Sabrina, I think I would want our audience to know that a lot of what we have learned comes from working professionals in the therapy space, in the counseling space, medical doctors, and so on and so forth. So a
Right.
lot of the feedback that we're going to give today comes from that. Not only have the two of us been utilizing therapy as a way to grow ourselves, but also Naeem is in that. And so let me first talk about this is such a huge thing now because I think a lot of parents are dealing with their kids growing up and the influences that we talk about coming into their life. And not all of those influences are positive
Yeah.
influences, unfortunately. And so that negativity is really important to understand. So I would say that the first thing that we consider is, how does your child see their self-worth? Do they have a self-esteem that's in place that allows them to sort of absorb negativity and then maybe sort of repackage it and sort of better understand it? Does that make sense?
Yeah, but how do you know when you're asking your
Mhm.
children, like, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? How are you measuring self confidence as a parent?
Right. I think it's open communication. We talk about that all the time with Naima. We have to be talking to her. We have to be understanding where she is, not only in her life in that moment, but also where she sees herself, like perhaps what her personal goals are and things of that nature. So I think for us as the parents, we've got to have that open communication structure so that we understand like what's actually happening. What is this negativity that's coming at her and how is she dealing with that based on her self-esteem? And that comes from looking at her, talking to her, understanding the relationships that she's currently keeping in her life and how she values those, or
Yeah.
if she doesn't value them, then we might see, okay, what's the negativity? Oh, it's coming from a friend, and that friend and her are butting heads for what reason? Oh, maybe the friend's parent passed away, or they're having some sort of traumatic
Right.
situation.
Right.
So we've got to figure out that sort of root cause, just like we want our physicians when we go to see them for assistance on our physical well-being to understand the root cause of it so that we're not treating symptoms, we're treating the root cause.
Right. I'm soaking everything you're saying in.
Yeah.
What strategies can parents use to teach children effective communication skills to handle these situations?
Yeah.
Because we're saying,
Mhm.
you're saying, hey, let's make sure that the channels of communication are
Mhm.
always open between us and our
Mhm.
children. Now, how do we teach them to do that same thing and effectively communicate with the world around them?
I think for me and for you, and I know that this may work for a lot of people who are watching this, and that is simply making sure that there's interpersonal contact between you and the kid, your child. Like it's in person. It's not over text. It's not emails. It's not distant phone calls. It's sitting down so that you can read body language and understand what's really feeling or causing consternation or feeling in them, and you can see that by their body language. By that same token, Sabrina, they will see from us the level of care, consideration,
Yes,
concern
yes.
when we look at our child. Because if Naima ever feels badly about anything, like you're the my little birdie, I'll protect you. There's this
Hi,
funny
little
meme, right?
bird.
And that's the reality of it, right? So
Yeah,
we're
I
loving
will.
parents, we want to be loving parents, we want to be available for them. So open that up. And then of course, the simple thing, this is Five Spheres of Fit. That's what this podcast is all about. That's the platform. That's the strategy that you use. So then you go through those those five spheres to understand the impact of that
Yes.
negativity.
So I was thinking right now, you know, last week I gave an example of, we're cooking in the kitchen
Mhm.
and our child, comes home from school and we're like, hey, how's your physical sphere
Mhm.
feeling? How's your, but if we're not doing that for ourselves, then how
Yeah.
can we
Yep.
communicate, efficiently, openly with our children, right?
Yep.
Let's be honest, most parents these days are so busy. During tax season, which is our primary business, we are swamped.
Sure.
We come home, we're exhausted. Thankfully, our busy season is January through April. So we do have open lines of communication from April through December.
You've got to make it a habit. Just like
But that's what I'm saying. You have to.
You prioritize.
If you can't prioritize, brushing your teeth, it's talking to your child and taking 10 minutes to do it.
You've got to prioritize, because at the end of the day, the lack of that. So remember this too. We say this a lot. Naima will model our behavior.
Yes.
And I think all parents out there, this is a really key in terms of dealing with the concept of negativity coming from others, is how your child deals with that will really be based on the behaviors that you've modeled in your own home. So like the way we deal with negativity and the adult concepts for you and I, Sabrina, that come up that we shield her from, because she doesn't need to be a part of those conversations and or to see the stress levels for us. And then maybe the initial response that for us may not be ideal. So if she sees that, it's like, well, mommy and daddy kind of lose it. Like, I guess I can lose my cool. Like, we want her to have these really healthy concepts, and that comes from us. By that same token, Sabrina, it's why when negativity from others comes to Naima, we know immediately it's coming from some of the children in and of themselves are not negative beings. They're always generally very happy. But if they're in environments that are negative, then they are going to foster those situations, and it'll become part of them. So we've got to.
I have a question, and it involves like an example. So say, for example, a little kid at school, or even, our daughter's cousin is texting her like stupid stuff, making her feel bad.
Sure.
Right. Negative scenario, not the first time it's happened with this person. And we're like, you know what? That's it. You're not friends with them anymore, or block them on, Messenger. I'm done with this negativity. Now, how are we teaching resilience when we do that? Because, you're protecting your social sphere, you're protecting your mental sphere, but is it realistic as they're growing up to say, anyone who's negative, just block them out?
So it's a great point. And I think one thing to consider, and I think parents will understand this, is because something happens in a child's life and we want them to be resilient. This comes on the heels of our previous podcast talking about resiliency and the importance of that for kids for a lot of reasons. But in this situation, to answer your question, our job as the gatekeeper for our children doesn't end simply because we want them to learn something else. Like, we want them to learn resilience. So, we'll let adversity just come flying through and whatever happens, happens. No. You still have to maintain that role as being a gatekeeper. But at the same time, though, invite in some of that adversity that's happened. Not go out and seek it, but if it's happening or it's happened, invite it in and deal with it. Understand why it's there, and the fact that it really doesn't have value for you. And you can reframe it. And I think this is really important.
That it doesn't have value for you.
No one's opinion, and this is so important, especially if your kids are on social media and those things where you don't really have a lot of control on the content being provided, is recognizing that the opinions of others don't provide self-worth to your child. It doesn't determine their worth in the world. Now, yes, if they're getting jobs and things like that, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about their self-esteem, their self-worth, how they view themselves.
Yes.
So yeah, when these things happen, when it happens to Naima, and unfortunately, we've dealt with on a few occasions where it happens continuously. And what we've always said to her is that there's always something going on that we don't know about, but it doesn't mean that we accept it. We don't have to tolerate it. We don't have to accept it.
We don't know for example, we don't know what's happening in that child's home.
Maybe the individual, is underemployed, unemployed, lost, whatever the case may be.
Parents
Someone's
are fighting.
Sick, parents are fighting. There's financial trouble. There's social trouble. Physically, they're not well. Mentally, they're not well. I mean, go through the 5 spheres.
Right.
Like anything, always go through your 5 spheres.
You said right now, the opinion of others, or the opinion of others. What value does that have for you? And I feel like that resonates in each of the spheres, physically, that workout you're doing, how does that, what is that value for you? Is it giving you value? If not, it's time to reevaluate that, right? Just like a relationship for a child.
Absolutely. 100%. And I think the overriding message from this podcast, from us, should be simply this: that when negativity from others permeates into what you would think of or hope to have a positive bubble around you, that you've got to take it on head on and use the concepts of the five spheres, the ability to organize, evaluate, and problem solve, to see that negativity for what it is. Don't let your child's sense of self-worth and self-esteem be impacted by it.
Right.
Model positive behaviors as a parent. And if you hadn't already, this is an impetus to do that, right? So that they know how to deal with that negativity. And then thirdly, keep the lines of communication constantly open.
Especially as they're getting into those tween and teen years, right? That's, these hormones. We just saw Inside Out 2. If you haven't seen it, go see it. The character of anxiety shows up, and, it just makes these children act in,
honestly, I think
crazy ways.
That anxiety character, is for me. For those of you who don't know, I deal with a lot of anxiety, and I feel like that character is always sitting on my shoulder, and I was laughing throughout that entire movie just thinking about that.
I always say this: when we were kids, our parents never spoke of anxiety. Nobody did, right? They probably didn't even know what anxiety was.
They didn't acknowledge it.
Now that we are acknowledging it, let's talk to our children about it. Before they become adults. So if you don't mind, can you repeat those three things for me?
Sure. So we want to make sure that we are teaching our children that the opinions of others don't provide them the reason for their self-worth, that their worthiness in the world is not based on the opinions of others.
Yes.
Secondly, as parents, we want to model those types of behaviors that kids can look at and go, oh, okay, this is how I deal with that. And then thirdly, keep the lines of communication open. Always be talking to your kids, and do it in person. I implore you, if you can't always do that, a simple text message telling them you love them, looking forward to talking to you when I get home, want to know how your day is, encouraging them to talk to you in a way that you want to be talked to. You don't want to lose sight of who they are as people and just catch a text message or an email or a phone call. You want to sit down, look at them, and really gauge that body language. So,
towards that third comment or third point, we have an 11-year-old who tells us a lot.
Too much.
Yeah. I mean, we know what's happening with every family at the school, right?
Yeah.
But that could change, right? And
it's inevitable.
It's inevitable. Right? But she has friends whose moms tell me that, oh, you know all that? I don't, my child already doesn't tell me anything. So, I was thinking in that case, spend more quality time with your child, whether it's, let's go get some ice cream. Let's go to Target. Let's grab some lunch, just the two of us together. Because it's those moments, not at home, where they're more likely to speak to you.
And we recognize how fortunate we are, not only to have the both of us, that she has a mother and father in her life, but that we have specialized training as attorneys. We know how to not only talk, but we also know how to elicit information from. We know how to ask the types of appropriate questions that give us the types of information, the facts, if you will, to really help her. And I think that's fortunate for us. And I get that. Not every parent is prepared, but that's why this podcast hopefully is something as a resource, as a tool for you, and maybe opens a door to lean on other folks and those who are specifically counseling professionals in this type of area. So.
Right. Well, thank you. I appreciate this conversation.
Awesome.
I think it's a great follow-up to last week's episode, which was about resilience and, teaching that to children. And this, like I said, this was a great one. So we hope you guys enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
Any final thoughts?
Just if you have any questions, feel free to, you can always reach out to us. That's one of the beautiful things about a startup and getting started is we are a resource, and we do want to learn as much from others as we can. But we're also available to answer questions on any of our podcasts or content on our website, app, or any of those outlets. So, reach out, let us know, and hopefully this is something that will help you.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.